Hey, welcome back. In this video, I would like to go into more detail on how I like to do my cope and stick joinery for my doors and panels and things like that. Here you can see some examples of what can be achieved. We're going to be focusing mainly on that door on the left from a set of kitchen doors that I did. And hopefully by the time we're done, you all get something out of it. Here's some examples of tooling you can get to create this joinery, from router bits to shaper tooling. And we've got three types here that I've got on display. This is a router bit setup, and you can see you're going from maybe a few ounces on those cutters. And then down here you see the brazed carbide tooling. These are basically throwaways and one profile only. You stack your cutters and to create that profile, and obviously the quality on these is going to be quite a bit better than the router bits just from the mass alone. And then over here we go into insert tooling, and these heads are quite a bit more massive now. You're talking a 10-pound head, and you get this up to speed, and the results are going to be even more dramatic as to the quality of cut. Here's an example of a raised panel sled that I've designed and built. It's simple. I use it for when I'm raising my panels on the slider. We're not going to be covering this today. Hopefully I'll get into a more detailed video on this type of thing at a later date. And these are the finished product of an entry door that I had designed and built, and here you see the final project. But anyway, like I said, that's for another day. Today I want to focus on the cope and stick joints like you see here. A simple, sweet, and near perfect joint. You've got your rail on the right there, which would be your counter profile, and your stile on the right is your profile. Yeah, I never get tired of making this joint. So we'll start by loading the tooling. The advantage of this type of insert tooling is you can select from many different profiles. Here we're going to be stacking the cutters and getting ready for counter profile, which I like to do first. This is the sacrificial fence that I will use as a backer board to prevent blowout on the counter profile there as I run my pieces. It attaches to my fence extrusion there with simple gibs that I've just drilled the holes for. I like to leave about a ½ inch to allow for some of that blowout, but still be backed up by the extrusion. This is a cast iron tenoning plate. When you're working with a sliding table, you want to take out some of the wane in a board that could possibly be like a diving board out over there and could create slightly different counter profiles, so you'd have to do a little more sanding after glue up. But with that cast iron plate, you get a very rigid platform there to clamp your pieces to. And there you can see again, I keep that cast iron plate about a ½ inch away. I like to plan for the tooling to cut everything, the whole profile, which means I don't try to sneak up just onto the end of the board. So I plan on taking a 32nd of an inch off of each end, so I make all my rails a 1/16 of an inch longer, and my stiles are a little bit wider than I want them, so that when I trim them in the end, they come to the final dimension that I'm looking for. there you see my 32nd of an inch spacer. So I will do this test cut, okay, which knows exactly how much I'm hopefully taking, and that gets me the profile. And then I bring my fence to within a 32nd of an inch, so that every consecutive piece I cut now will be a 32nd of an inch less. So let's sit back and we'll just watch me go through a stack of rails. For shorter rails, I don't like to rails that I can't get both clamps on. Basically, what I do is I surround them with, I get the one clamp on it, and then I put another board, as you can see, on the other side, and then clamp it into the fence, as well as clamping it down to the tenoning plate. I don't know that this is necessary, but I find that it's just a little bit more secure. And so that's the way I like to do it. For really small pieces, like you see there, this piece is not even quite 4 inches for a skinny door. I kind of go one extra. I can't get the clamp over far enough to actually clamp it down. So what I do is I clamp a board just behind it, and then I will cantilever a piece of wood out over to clamp it down to the cast iron, as you can see here. And then I will also sandwich that piece between a board and a squeegee clamp there to the fence, again, like I did before. So on these really small pieces, we have that piece completely surrounded and trapped, so that I can get the consistent cut that I'm looking for. All right, so we finished all the coping, and now I'm going to go ahead and set up for the profiling here. I'm just tweaking the cutter and lining up the groover with the tenon so that it's dead on that way. And I'll go ahead and set up the fence for all the profiling. Now, like I had done in the coping here, you can see my 32nd of an inch spacer again. I'm going to plan on taking about a 32nd off of the profile. So again, the shaper cuts its profile and counter profile completely. There, I just kind of line up, make sure that's the edge, 32nd away, and then I will move that down a little bit and adjust the outfeed fence to take up that little bit of that will be taken off. You'll see here that my test cut proves fruitful and accurate, and soon we'll be ready to just start running. With the aid of my faithful all-purpose push jig here, I will run through a couple of piles of these, and when it warrants, I can stack two of them together, get it done at once, and sometimes for even smaller pieces, I again will sandwich them around to other pieces. When I'm doing this, basically my pressure focus is on the infeed fence for the first half of the cut, and on the outfeed fence for the second half of the cut. When you're set up properly, it's not that important, other than that just for good practices, it really helps to eliminate any snipe by over pressuring one side or the other as you get sort of rocking on the metal. This is my setup sort of for cutting veneers on the slider. As you know, veneer cutting can be kind of tedious, so with all the curl and stuff in the sheet. So what I like to do is put pieces of plywood, scrap wood, whatever, just to weight it down and keep it relatively flat as I go through the cuts. And then here you can see I've taken my center measure to make sure I'm getting the book matches where I want within the panels, so that when I put the doors together, I'll get the progression that I want on that on that figured maple and stuff. So now I've got the veneer adhered to the substrate to create the panel, and I'm setting up the slider now for the straight lining, parallel cutting, and then cross cutting of the panels. One of the advantages about a longer slider is, I've often told people, is not so much the length of the slider and being able to do long cuts, although that's a huge advantage. No, for me it's more about stations. As you can see here, I've got kind of a miter station on one end and a parallel jig which can work with either side, with either a crosscut fence or by itself like you see here. And so I've got stations set up here where I will go through and do some straight lining, trimming, and then final dimensioning, and then move right into the crosscut fence. Hopefully the remainder of this that you'll see here will sort of be self-explanatory. Glue up time. Since I'm going to be trimming these doors with a slider anyway, since like I said, I oversized everything so I could trim to my final dimension, I don't worry too much about being square at glue up. I trust my joints and fitting everything together. It's awfully close to squares, but I don't need any special jigs or arrangements to try to be square right out of glue up. Again, I will, let these doors be squared up on the slider itself. Now, door trimming time. This should give you a really good idea of what I mean by using the slider as stations. Here you see I'm doing the straight lines first. I get all those done, and then when I get those done, I'll tweak the fence to the final dimension, turn those boards around, and get that last dimension. So now I have two parallel sides, and then as you can see, I'm stacking them already on the crosscut fence, and I will go to the crosscut fence and then trim one side and final dimension the other side, and bingo, I'm done. I got a square door that's the dimension I want it to be. So here we are starting the install of the doors. And after the place has been lived in for a while. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and that you come back for more. Take care.